name is Dr. Joy Brock, and I am a Program Director for Concern Employee Assistance Program, which is a program of River Valley Counseling. And today we're going to just talk about a little bit of holiday stress and what that really looks like in COVID times. So holiday stress, we have the usual traditional ones like financial stresses, or this idea that, how do we get things done? How do we deal with family? How do we handle things if we're feeling a little bit alone? Or even, what's happened this year? But COVID's sort of thrown things in a little bit of a loop, in the sense that we're not sure. Financial stresses are a little bit worse than I think they've been in the past years. And there's a lot of fears about our health, about the precautions we have to take, about the people that we're going to be around. If we travel, how do we travel? Can we travel? Are we able to meet in large groups of people, or is it going to be a small gathering? And even things like, it's not going to be the same. Like, what is this going to look at like? Because it's different from what we're used to, from the parties that we might have gone to, or the plays or the activities or the events that usually come around this time of year. So it's really important for you to start by paying attention to what the symptoms of stress actually are for you, and they vary depending on each type of individual. They can be anything from headaches to irritability. And irritability can be when you get really, really frustrated with small little tiny things you're trying to do, or it can be when you're cursing out someone because they frustrate you as you're trying to drive down the road. It can just be that sense of overwhelming frustration about the way that things are. And then there's mood swings where one moment you're really happy and one moment not so much. And even sadness. For some of us, that looks like a lot of tears. It can also show up as irritability and frustration. This year, I think that anxiety is probably the biggest one for all of us. We don't really know what's going on. We don't have a lot of control over things. And I think this makes us extremely anxious because we really don't know what to expect. And it takes a lot for us to think outside of what we're really comfortable with, which can be really overwhelming if you think about it. It can make us really exhausted. Sometimes we eat and we overeat and we reach for those snacks or those sweets just because it makes us feel a little bit better, or because it helps us manage our stress. Some of us have taken up drinking an extra glass of wine or an extra beer than we normally have. And sometimes that stress can really affect our sleep to the point where we're not even sleeping all that well. So when you think about holiday stress and really how to deal with it, the big question is, what do we do? What's the first thing? How do we even start this process? So the most important thing, I think, is to decide what's most important to you. What is it that you can't live without? What is the one thing you need this year to make it feel like it was a successful holiday season, given all the limitations that were here? You can list and prioritize and plan the things that you'd like to do, but the biggest part of this is to pace yourself. Be careful of overscheduling. I think with COVID, we may not overschedule quite as much, again, because of those events and those types of things that are not available to us at this point. But it is still possible to get to this place where we're feeling a little overwhelmed by what we do want to accomplish, or coordinating everyone together. And it can be really hard and stressful trying to do that if you don't pace yourself out. On top of that, it's kind of important to sit back and go, do I also have time to do the things I actually most enjoy during the season? What are the tiny things that delight you, that make you feel really, really excited about each of the holidays? Do you have the time to put those in, given how chaotic things can be? It's really important that if you set limits, that you stick with them, that you don't allow yourself to get overwhelmed. And as much as possible, sharing those responsibilities. So if you're in a family, that might mean helping and delegating different types of responsibilities. If you have children, it's a great time to get them involved in all kinds of different parts of the holidays. Given they may not do things perfectly or exactly the way that you want to do them, but they will get them done. And it might be fun for them to feel like they're actually involved in the holidays. So of course we do worry a lot about finances, given some of us have been furloughed, some of us are on unemployment, and some of us just really stress around the season almost normally. And the question is, how much can we really afford to spend? So making that determination before you hit the crux of the holidays or the bulk of the holidays is extremely important. Additionally, it might mean thinking about things differently. If you have a certain tradition for food, can you change it up because it's a little less expensive in this time frame? Decorations are kind of a big thing for a lot of people. But the interesting part, if you've never tried it, is there's a lot of DIY things out there. YouTube and Pinterest have some amazing things that you can create and do to decorate your homes or make them look amazing during the holidays. And you can use other people's experiences and ideas. A good example of this might be paper. We often take paper for granted and we say, well, that's nice, but I don't want a ton of paper decorations. But it's kind of amazing if you go out and look what people can actually do with paper decorations. And that's something that's really inexpensive and can still create a festive home. As far as gifts are concerned, a really good rule of thumb for that is not trying to buy happiness with an avalanche of gifts. I think sometimes when we watch enough films and television, we think that more is better. And sometimes it's just figuring out what's the one thing that person needs that I can afford and that will actually get here on time. You can donate to a charity in someone's name. You can give those homemade gifts or even the gift of time. If you're able to babysit other people's children, grandchildren, give someone a break from something, or do some kind of project for them. Even homemade gifts like creating calendars or digital media that has all the pictures from the year that you were able to collect or years past where you were together as a family. Those things can really mean a lot to people. Or start that family gift exchange. If you can't afford to buy for the whole family, pick that one family member and buy for that one person and get what you can. There's also feelings of, this isn't really how I thought it would be. And it's really okay for you to be realistic. What is normal in this time frame? Is it going to be a gathering of 25, 30 people? Or is it now limited down to the 3 people that are okay to be there? What about health? For a lot of us, we can't go because of health reasons, or we have family members who struggle a lot with health. And it's figuring out what precautions do we need to put in place, or if we have to step back for a minute, how do we still show people that we love and care about them? It's really important during this time to be careful about our comparisons, looking at what other families are doing, or paying attention more to, the Joneses and how they have it all put together is not going to help you during this season. It really helps to look at what you have and frankly to be grateful for what that is, because it is kind of a blessing to have some of the things we have during this season. Also reminding yourself to relax. Again, I'm going to say this 100 times. It's really important to relax and take care during this season. You're also allowed to get creative. Okay, things are not the same. Traditions are going to look a little bit different. But again, what are the things that you can do to make this amazing? To enjoy that spark, that thing that delights you, that thing that lights you up, that helps you stay positive when lots of things feel a little less certain. And always have a backup plan. So if you are traveling or you are planning to get together with family, also keep in mind if someone gets sick or states choose to close things down, you might have to have a backup plan. So what is it that you are able to do? For some people, this means online parties. They practice before the actual event together, but they get together and they spend a half an hour talking. They learn how to play games with each other online. They learn how to have pie contests where everybody makes a dessert and then shares it. But basically having an idea of what do we do if things don't go quite as great as we want them to, or things come up. Of course, there's family concerns that always come up this time of year. The hard part about family is that sometimes they have ideas for what they want you to do, and they're a little bit different from what you really need or want in this time. Sometimes families guilt trip you with obligations or expectations, or even words like you're not as concerned about health or you're overly concerned about health. They may even push boundaries and try and push you into doing things that you may not be comfortable with, one way or the other. Fortunately, the nice part about this is you actually have control over what you do next. And it's helpful to be really realistic about what you're willing to do or not do in a given season. And to set your own expectations and communicate that with other people. Family also gives you a choice sometimes if you're going, where you go, how long you stay. I think sometimes when we're around family and even our friends, we have an expectation we're supposed to be there for a really, really long time. Sometimes it's okay if it's a short span of time, if it's just an hour rather than an entire day. And again, paying attention to those precautions. Maybe everybody in the house needs to wear masks because of health concerns. It may be really frustrating to those who don't feel like they need it, but it's one of those things where you have to figure out, do I want to keep myself safe, my family safe? How do I do that? What does that actually look like? Setting boundaries with your family, making sure you're very clear about what you need, and communicating those boundaries to your family are huge. This does not mean getting aggressive or quiet, and by that I mean pulling back and withdrawing from your family and not letting them know what you need in this moment, or getting really upset and yelling, which we sometimes do when we're around family. The other part of this is it helps if you know what really bothers you about family. So if you've got a family that drives you a little crazy, that's okay. But it's figuring out, how do I take care of myself in this moment? How do I show them that I care for them and they matter to me, but also back off of that emotional intensity and maybe not give in to those negative comments or let them push your buttons quite so much. So it's really figuring out, they throw me back. I feel like I'm a 15-year-old kid when I'm with family. Why is that? And is it possible to even change that at this point? Another part that comes up with holiday stress is when we're lonely. So some of us are single. Some of us are college kids that can't get to be with family because of all the travel precautions or even our college's rules. There's times where family itself isn't able to come together the way they did. And being lonely, sometimes it doesn't feel the same. It's okay for you to feel whatever it is that you feel. So it's okay to feel sad, and we don't encourage you to force happiness. Being comfortable with those uncomfortable feelings is never something we really want to do, but it's a great practice during this season. So if that means you're saying bah humbug, or I don't want to be with family, or I don't want to be around other people in this time frame, that's also perfectly fine. We encourage you to process your feelings every single day, preferably without drugs and alcohol. So this might mean taking 5 or 10 minutes out of your day to just sit down and feel what you're feeling. Whatever comes up, let it ride through you. It's better to get through those things by making the time for what you feel. The other thing is, if you're anything like a lot of people and you don't really want to cry or feel those emotions, sometimes listening to music or even watching a sappy movie and then blaming your tears on the movie that you just watched actually do help. And that way, if you're feeling uncomfortable about what you're feeling, you've got a good scapegoat. The other thing is, you can build new traditions. So in this time frame, there are things that we might not be able to do, but we can also keep in mind that this might not go on past this year. So maybe next year, everything will be better than it is right now. But we can create new traditions that we bring even going forward. We can create something that's lasting, that's important to us. But again, it means getting creative and deciding for yourself, what is it that actually makes you happy? What is it that you can do during this season? Unfortunately, it should be acknowledged that many of us have suffered losses during this time, whether due to COVID or natural causes or all the things that happen in life in general. Those things are very difficult. And especially during the holiday time, it's really important, if you can and if you feel good about it, to really remember your loved one, to do something in remembrance of them, and whether that's donating to a cause that is valuable to you, whether it's incorporating those interests into your new transitions, if it's looking at those photos or going to the spot that reminds you of that person, if it's just telling stories about them, or even talking to your loved one during this time. Any number of these things might help you feel connected. It is very difficult for us when the holidays come around, when we have lost someone, or when those transitions and changes have changed our family dynamics. It's hard, but the important part is figuring out, what does the new way look like, And can I remember and honor those that I love or that I've lost? The other piece of this is with COVID, I'm sure many of us have not been able to do the things that we really were excited about. And more than any other year, we might say, you know what, I haven't accomplished anything. I'm too busy taking care of the kids. I'm too busy being with other people. I'm really overwhelmed. So the question is, take stock of it. What has changed? What stayed the same? Be sure to give yourself credit for what you actually have accomplished. And even if it's just wrangling people together and keeping everybody safe, that's huge in this time frame. Making everybody wear masks, that's actually kind of a big deal. So figuring out what did you do and celebrating that moment. Also, pay attention to different kinds of changes. If you couldn't accomplish anything, was it because those things were things that you really wanted or things that people told you really should do? When it comes to New Year's, it may be important to think, maybe I don't need a New Year's resolution. Instead, I can maybe change something little by little, day by day. And that way I don't get overwhelmed when those things don't happen. The idea is to live a full and meaningful life and to figure out every single day what exactly that looks like. And of course, self-care is fantastic. And by self-care, I mean those daily routines we put in place to help keep us going, to help us work through stress and burnout. But the bottom line is sometimes we need those very quick fixes or those things that help us in the short term. So that can be anything from listening to music to aromatherapy, which is those lovely scents that are in the air. There's ones for Thanksgiving and Christmas. And believe it or not, Yankee Candle is still open, so you are able to buy candles that make you feel like, hey, I'm feeling festive this year. Engaging your five senses as much as possible, making sure you make time for breaks, even that nap you really want, cuddling up with a nice blanket, pillow, or sitting down and binge watching a show for a little while, that's perfectly okay to do during this season if it makes you feel good. Also figure out how to make the things that you have to do this season, fun. Reward yourself if you can. Again, we don't want you to overeat, but a sweet here and there or something exciting that makes you feel good is okay. Take a moment to breathe. A lot of us don't breathe. We hold our breath and just hope we get through the stress as fast as we can. Be sure to get enough sleep, to hydrate yourself, to eat as healthy as you can. Make sure you're taking care of your body because you need that to keep functioning. And to be honest, when we take the time to take care of our bodies, our stress does actually go down. Also reading, watching a show, doing those things that are fun, and also calling friends. Sometimes just connecting with other people, even if it's a short Zoom meeting or Google Meets where you're just hanging out for a few minutes and connecting with the people that you care about. Make sure you give yourself permission to have a wonderful holiday, to focus on what matters to you most, to figure out how to do things a little bit differently. Let the stress go and enjoy yourself as much as you can. Remember, you have the right to do things differently this year. You can be where you want to be, have a little bit of fun. Change your mind if things aren't working out so well. Find that rest, that peace, the solitude if it works for you. And of course, you have the right to change it up next year. So for those of you that feel like you're struggling a lot, also keep in mind that therapy is a great option. You are welcome to call River Valley Counseling Center. They will definitely set you up with a counselor to help you out during this tough time. And the number, of course, is 413-540-1234. And for all of you out there, happy holidays.